All right, guys, we are on the final game, and we're going up against this is another warrior game. Um, there will be a bonus game after this, just as a side note, but it's not going to have. It won't be post commentary like these other games have been. I kept the live commentary on there, although it's not much of a live commentary. But anyway, this is going to be we're going up against it turns out to be a Patron Warrior. To go over the mulligan for this game, there's not much to go over actually. The You pretty much just want a mulligan for Control Warrior because Control Warrior is the more common matchup on ladder by far. I guess there's an argument for keeping Light Bomb on the coin if you 100% know you're going up against a Patron Warrior, but I've never tried it. So I go ahead and toss Light Bomb and pick up a Loatheb, but keep everything else, assuming this is Control Warrior. One thing I forgot to mention in the previous Warrior game, and that's something I didn't really mention throughout this series, versus Control, as well as decks like Patron Warrior and Oil Rogue, you definitely want to keep track of what removal has been used and what threats have been played, and what removal and threats are left in their hand, possibly, or their deck. But once you find out that the warrior is actually a Patron Warrior, you'll want to be aggressive and pressure their life total. You will only know it's Patron, though, when they play Unstable Ghoul, Frothing Berserker, or Dread Corsair, or obviously Grim Patron. So I feel like I had a pretty good start here because on turn 2, I played Mech Warper and then coined out a Noyatron to respond to his Fiery War Axe, which was a Noyatron's generally annoying for Warrior. It's excellent against Control Warrior. Patron, not so much. It's still fine in the early game, but you get to a point during the game where a Noyatron and Museum Curator even basically become pretty awful to play because you're risking them being able to generate multiple patrons off of those two minions. So here I just curve out and Frothing Berserker comes down, so that's pretty much the tell there that this is Patron Warrior. Now, this game was a little bit weird though, because even though he's played this Frothing Berserker and I put him on Patron, the way the game played out, at one point I felt like maybe this might not be Patron and it might just be Control Warrior that just happens to be running Frothing Berserkers. But I go ahead and Argus now. I like to save Argus just in case I need a couple of taunts to defend against a Patron wave or something like that, but I wanted to be able to kill the Frothing Berserker cleanly. And here I take a pretty big risk, but I just wanted to go for the combo. I just go ahead and drop Brand Bronzebeard and Museum Curator. My opponent's got a Deathbite up and he's going into turn 6, so that's pretty dangerous. If he's got Grim Patron in hand, I could get blown out despite getting this off. So I pick Sludge Belcher because I feel like that was the overall best choice. I just want to be able to have some type of defense against the Patron wave or against something that's a ridiculously buffed Frothing Berserker or maybe even Grom. So that was my reasoning for picking Sludge Belcher. I think Sludge Belcher is better now that since the Warsong Commander nerf. I think Sludge Belcher is better against this deck than it used to be. Because before the nerf, Sludge Belcher actually was not very good against Patron Warrior. But anyway, he's going to use the second swing here, and between him having to clear stuff with his weapons and me just dropping minions on him, I've been able to pressure his life total and be pretty aggressive. So he unfortunately manages to take Bran out, and I'm just left with a bunch of really small dorks, and then the Unstable Ghoul comes down along with the armor up. Now here I believe I top deck a Northshire Cleric. I do, and I just go ahead and play her because I'm kind of playing pretty defensive. I feel like with this Lotheb, because I could easily, any of these turns I could have easily just played Lotheb, but I wanted to save Lotheb for a specific situation until I either had lethal or I had basically until I had lethal or against if he managed to get a Grim Patron down, then I would block his spells, things like Inner Rage and Whirlwind. But I played a bunch of dorks here on turn 6, which also was pretty risky because none of these things can kill Grim Patron, but most of my board blew up to any 1 damage effect anyway, so I figured it was okay. And he plays the second Deathbite, slings at the Cleric, and then plays a Whirlwind to clear off my guys. But anyway, I actually wanted to go over the key cards in this matchup. The key cards are Shadow Word Pain, Light Bomb, and to an extent, Velen's Chosen in combination with Holy Nova. A Shadow Word Pain should only be used against Grim Patron in general. You should only use it on Acolyte of Pain if they are low on cards in hand to prevent them from drawing and getting back into the game. Light Bomb needs to be saved until they go all in and commit Grim Patron and Frothing Berserker to the board. That's the only time you want to use Holy Nova. I mean Light Bomb, excuse me. But Holy Nova, it should be utilized in the same way as Light Bomb in combination with Velen's Chosen, but that's tougher to pull off because you need to have both in your hand and a minion on board. But try to save both cards to combo them together if you can, since Nova will do 3 damage and that'll clear a Patron Wave. So same rules that apply to Light Bomb apply to that combination. And my opponent just plays Dr. Boom. And here I go face and then use Light Bomb here to clear his Dr. Boom, which, like I just said, is a no-no in this matchup. I did this because I was ahead on life total and I really just wanted to be aggressive and put him closer to lethal and push for the win. But I still feel it was a misplay, since if you look here, even though he's at 6, I don't have a way of killing my opponent next turn or even in the next 2 turns by making that play. I could have just played Upgraded Repair Bot on the Piloted Shredder, used Reversing Switch to flip the attack and health, and use the Shredder just to kill off Light Bomb. And the Boom Bots would... I'd probably clear the Boom Bots with Curator and a Mech Warper by doing that. So that's unfortunate, but here he's going to use the last swing of his Deathbite, which is excellent actually for me because I don't have to deal with Deathbite anymore. Here I go with the 2 mechs over Lotheb and Sludge Belcher because I still wanted to save Lotheb for after he dropped a Grim Patron to prevent him from playing those multiple ping effects like Inner Rage and Whirlwind, like I was saying before. So I was just keeping Lotheb in the back. So I go with the Upgraded Repair Bot, and then I go with Gorilla Bot so I can proc the Discover. And here Shadow Boxer is not as good at this point in the game, so I just go with Mimiron's Head. And I fully intend on playing this as just a 5-mana 4/5. I don't expect to go off with its ability. But here my opponent's thinking about something here. And this game did turn out to be pretty long. I'm just checking the card count, how many cards we have left in our deck, which, I mean, this matchup has never gone to fatigue for me. There's been so few patrons, although I think this season, season 25, that changed a little bit because I ran into a bunch of Patron Warriors at the beginning of this new season. But season 24, I hardly ran into any Patron Warriors. And by the way, I didn't mention this in the beginning of the video, but I would say we are not favored against this deck, because oftentimes we don't have the ability to push enough damage to finish the Patron Warrior off before they're able to get a couple cards together and go off. So that's the reason why we're not favored here. Reversing switch gets used here. I go ahead and flip the attack and health of the Acolyte to prevent an additional draw, so that way it just dies. And here I'm going to end up using Sludge Belcher to block this Grommash, and then play Piloted Shredder behind that. So reversing switch still got some mileage, but not as much, I feel, because I could have used it to kill Dr. Boom earlier. But it just seems like my opponent just doesn't have that much. And he's going to swing Grom into the Sludge Belcher, actually. He only has one weapon left, a second Fiery War Axe. That hasn't been played. Both Death Spites are gone, which is pretty big. But yeah, he's going to end up swinging Grom into Sludge Belcher. And then I believe he's going to play, I think, one or two other minions once he does that. I believe he plays second Acolyte of Pain and something else, if I'm not mistaken. But my opponent's taking a while. He's roping. And then he said it was an error what he did, but if you look at the rest of this game, there was nothing I saw that indicated that he should have done something different. Even with the remaining cards in his hand, because I believe he eventually those cards get played. Spoilers, but yeah, he plays Shredder as well as an Acolyte. Now here, I just need to sequence things correctly. I go ahead and play the Shadow Boxer, since I feel a little bit safer about playing it, since my opponent only has 2 cards in hand. I almost heal the Slime and then attack into the Armorsmith, but then I realized Shadow Boxer might ping the Acolyte, so I go ahead and take out the Acolyte first. That does give my opponent 1 extra armor, which is unfortunate, but Shadow Boxer actually pings the Armorsmith, which is pretty big. Then I go ahead and trade my Piloted Shredder into his Grom, and then go face with the Slime. And here, I decided to go ahead and play Fugan over Mim's Head, since I figured I didn't have the 3 other mechs to assemble Voltron. And even if I did, I don't think that would have been the best play, because, you know, what if he had a way of dealing with Voltron on his own turn? So I didn't want to do that. So that's why I went with Fugan. I think my opponent's really strapped for options, though. He's only got a Shredder on board, 4 cards in hand, which isn't a lot. He definitely has card advantage, but I absolutely have the dominant board position at this point. And he's going to swing Shredder into the Slime, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Like I said, guys, this is a pretty long game. A lot of tough decisions that my opponent had to make. The turns just get increasingly difficult. See, there's the execute. So if I had somehow had the mechs to form Voltron, and he had some way of dealing with the Slime taunt, then that would have been it. So I'd rather just keep my board as wide as possible. So I go ahead and clear off the back half of the Shredder. Then now I decide to go ahead and play Lotheb and just keep the threats coming. Keep putting my opponent on the clock since he got so much armor off of Armor Smith. Yeah, Battle Rages. That's pretty desperate. He's Battle Raging for 1. We like to see that. And seems like my opponent just has nothing but answers, and then the answers just don't line up with the threats that I have on the table. I'm still going to hold on to Mim's Head, actually, and just not play it, just in case for some reason he has some type of mass removal. Now, eventually, he plays Armor Smith here, and then we finally see Grim Patron. And then followed up by an Inner Rage. I believe he ends up getting 4 Grim Patrons out of this. Yeah, in the second Whirlwind. Gives him 4 Grim Patrons. Now, here, Holy Nova ends up being pretty good. I still don't have lethal, since he's at 15 health, with an Armor Smith on the board. So I just go ahead and clear the full health patrons, and then I go ahead and swing Shadow Boxer into the Armor Smith. It gives him extra armor, but this is the only way I can effectively clear his board and keep mine alive. And Shadow Boxer pings, so it reduces the armor count definitely. And I believe I'm gonna heal the Fugan to full health, and then power shield the Shadow Boxer, and then go ahead and just pass the turn. And I get Cabal Shadow Priest. Cabal gets the usual targets that it does against Control Warrior. Acolyte of Pain is going to be your best target. You'll never be able to get a Frothing Berserker because they're not going to play Frothing Berserker unless they can buff it on the same turn. And here I swing into the Dread Corsair, and my opponent immediately concedes. But yeah, that's going to be the last game, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this series. Stay tuned for the bonus game after this against Arena Lock, and I will catch you guys next time. Peace.